especially with another interest of yours, which we won't talk about just yet. We're going to say that later on. But I want to just say a big hello to Tom from Cyprus. You've got obviously no snow in Cyprus. I take it must be lovely and warm over there. And Damien, of course, Sardinia. Well, I'm assuming you're still in Sardinia. You've not attempted to come back home to the UK in light of the fact you get sent to a lovely hotel and be caught with all the costs. That's from next week if you were to do so. So welcome.
And if you haven't got the South African variant, you definitely get it while you're in the hotel, which is quite nice. It's just
just for good measure. A very good measure. I love it. A good bit of sense of humour. So we're going to be getting started officially in about 30 seconds or so, and it'll be really good to get going. And obviously, I'm expecting lots of great things from you, Roger and Barnaby, today. So no pressure. All right, so let's just bring this up here. There we go. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining in today. I'm just going to open up the comments window so can everyone see everyone coming through. Renato, welcome. Thank you very much for your input in the earlier session as well. Oh, you got snow even right? Interesting. That's interesting, Tom. That's great. It's good to hear that. Anyway, now interesting enough, this goes to show this particular slide how quickly things change. Every time you've perhaps put something down on paper, you find that 24 hours later something else comes along, which suggests that other things might be happening in the wider economy. And obviously, Renato highlighted the point, I've also seen it on the news, about the fact there are also, sadly, a lot of small businesses which, of course, are probably never going to reopen. And of course, a lot of us have known that for a while. And I think today is looking at things from a slightly different perspective, because there's other parts of the economy, large parts of the economy, which hopefully over the next few months will start to open up again. So this session is largely devoted to that. So the reason I particularly touch on this for a moment is that anything we're going to be saying today is not meant to in any shape or form to be insensitive to those business owners which are, for whatever reason, finding a real struggle. But what I would say, this is an opportunity to reevaluate what you're doing in your business, to see what you can do to turn things around into the new world order. Ultimately, we're going to find ourselves over the next few months. So with that in mind, I just wanted to slightly set the scene on that. So we were creating a sort of balanced point of view, as it were. So moving on a little bit from there, so let me just get this in the right place. Obviously, I'm very appreciative of you joining us today. One of the great things with our membership is that we got lots of really nice people within the community. In fact, the previous session we had just now, it was very, very apparent that a lot of the regulars are here for all sorts of reasons, perhaps because they do enjoy being part of the community. We are here to support you. And one of the things I would actively encourage you to do, I'm being a little bit cheeky today because we did promise 3 £20 Amazon vouchers today in light of the fact I made a terrible transaction yesterday. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with this as well. But if we're going to have 3 different prizes throughout today. So the first prize is if you could very kindly just share this session through the social channels or on YouTube or Facebook, and just let us know you've done it in the chat. One of you, as part of a bit of a lucky dip, will actually be drawn out to win a £20 prize. So if you're happy to share and to like it, or if it's on YouTube, subscribe, that'd be really appreciated. And obviously, we're very much here to help you focus on business growth. And that's, Miro, just make sure I don't forget any of this part of the way through as well, because I do want to make sure we stick to what we promised to do on that.
Okay.
Yeah, those of you who have just joined us the last few minutes, if you could just indicate in the chat what you're really passionate about and why you do it. And also, Roger and Barnaby both love questions. And if you've got some nice challenging ones for us as well, it's great because it gives us a chance for us to get our teeth into it, as it were. And what we're really here to help you with today is to help you to, first of all, we'd like to be known for making a difference. And we love to show people the how and the right methodologies and systems to achieve great results. And as you know, Business Growth Bureau specializes in bringing sales forward, amplifying your brand and helping to get your time back. And a very quick introduction from me and Earl. I personally formed Business Growth Bureau about 7 years ago, 100% believe in the importance of circular relationships. And I'm very fortunate because, for example, I know Barnaby, I think, for about 8 years or so. And it's because of the fact Barnaby's always got this very positive view about paying it forward, but also is very supportive of organizations generally. Our values are very well aligned. And equally, something I would just say, and Roger, I think, as well, for that, that one of the things I would say is if you always try and make everyone feel good about the relationship with your prospects, clients, partners, associates, employees, suppliers, and so on, each one of those, think of them as being a stakeholder in your business and make them feel good about working with you. And with Muriel, I'm very blessed with Muriel. She's been with me for 12 years. It's almost like a life sentence, Muriel, isn't it? So I think the only one who's probably scored worse than that is my wife. Yeah, so yeah. But yeah, it's absolutely delighted to have Muriel on board. And sort of moving on a little bit from there, in terms of, so I can't see the screen properly here. I would like to introduce, obviously, for those of you who don't know Barnaby and Roger, I think Barnaby is known for running the Brand Bucket Company. It's got some great methodologies, which we 100% believe in, and they complement exactly what we are all about as well. And he's going to be sharing lots of insights today. And Roger, not only you've got great involvement with Celtic Castles and got a very unique proposition with that, but you've also got I think it's fair to say Roger also has a great desire to help other business owners to be very successful. So is that a fair summary of you both, would you say, Roger and Barnaby?
Yeah.
I'm not called Robert Honywood, founder and CEO of Business Growth Bureau. That's all I would like to make clear at this juncture.
What have I done wrong? Oh, God. This is not good.
So it's the only point of clarity I'd like to make to the there's one of them is plenty. I am not trying to manifest myself as one. So.
Oh dear. Sorry about that insult for you, Barnaby.
No, I wouldn't say insult, but it's incorrect.
How many times I checked this before today as well? So there we go. Now there is something else that all three of us have got in common, although not to any great degree. We've got Roger with his super motorbike there. What is your motorbike, Roger?
It's a Triumph 800.
Nice. And is it one of the original Triumphs, or is it?
No. It's a Tiger adventure bike, so it allows me to go into sticky, muddy places if I need to.
Nice. Yeah, brilliant. And Barnaby, you've this fantastic scooter of yours. You use it quite regularly when it's not snow on the road, don't you? Or at least, or when you're not locked in.
I do. Yeah, it's free parking at the station.
Yeah, which is Ebbsfleet. Ebbsfleet, is it?
Yeah, which is it's now £9 a day or something like that. So since I go up to 3-4 times a week, it can work out. So and I love it, of course. I love it. I've had one since I was 17. So this is my 10th that you're looking at there over the years.
Yeah, well, that's pretty impressive. And I'm afraid the closest I get to it, I have ridden motorbikes quite a bit in the past. And if my wife would allow me to have one, which because they usually cost a lot of money for anything decent, then I'd probably be very tempted. But this is the closest I get to. It's an electric mountain bike. And I shouldn't really say this as being live streamed, but it's supposed to be regulated, but it certainly isn't. It seems to go at least twice as fast as the average bike does. And so
it'll go faster. It goes faster than my scooter, I can tell you that. That's,
oh dear, that is funny. But yeah, no, it's great fun being on the two wheels, as it were. And as we come up to the spring, hopefully we'll all be able to get out a bit more as well. So. And then in terms of today's session, today is very much about how do we ride the wave as the market returns. As I say, it needs to be said very sensitively in light of some of the other things that business owners are going through. And the question really is, are we being delusional about this, especially in light of the fact we're in the worst health emergency and recession all time that certainly we remember. And I think the last time it gets close to it is 1919, as it was the Black Plague. That's not Black Plague, the Spanish flu, was it? The Spanish flu? Yeah. So, obviously it's not been a great time for many of us, unfortunately. And why should we prepare and get ready for what is to come? Why is it so important to act now? And what is your state of business readiness as a point of discussion? And how to avoid being left behind? And this is actually really important because, to be frank, we've all had plenty of time to plan now We've known it since this March last year. So, it's a case of moving on from the planning stage and taking some form of action where possible. And also the whole area around about focusing on prospects and customers. So with that in mind, I think what we'll do is let's bring it up so we can see everyone a bit better. So just bear me a second while I try and sort this out. There we go. So perhaps just as a general point, Barnaby, what are your thoughts about this? I know you and I have talked about this privately a few times over the last few months, especially relating to the first question is about, are we being delusional in light of this? In fact, I think we first started talking about on air about November last year.
That's right.
So,
yeah, when we were coming out of 2, I think, and before we went into 3, I think lockdown 3. Yeah, I mean, I think the so I'm very clear on this. I think all the talk of a health crisis and being and the recession are ill-founded. I think the first thing is that the repercussions of overloading a system, and that's true when we're in business, they're always going to be profound. So of course we've overloaded the system with people with COVID, and I understand that. But the incidence of flu for the moment, which usually overwhelms hospitals at this time of year, there is almost no flu in the UK because it's been replaced by COVID. So I think we have to be very careful about overwhelming the health service. Not say I have 2 doctors in the family. They are under huge stress, huge pressure. It's all that sort of thing. So I think we have to be careful about that. I think it will ease off as it starts to do now. In terms of recession, this isn't a real recession. This is we've just been stopped from trading by government, and clearly business relies on cash flow. And if you're not generating any cash flow, that's going to put real pressure on your business. So a lot of businesses that have not focused on cash flow and have got therefore a cash reserve to survive something like this are fall by the wayside. I think businesses that are entirely cash flow reliant and have no profits in them are also going to suffer during a period of time like this. So I think a lot of the businesses that will fall by the wayside might have done under any stress point and anything. But the real exciting thing is that I think the government has done an exceptional job in trying to keep those businesses alive that can stay alive with furlough, with Sibbles, with Bibbles. I think they've done they've provided grants. There are a lot of people who have missed out and all that sort of thing, and I understand that. And the reason is because what's happening now is society is like a coiled up spring. It is just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And I think what will happen is the moment the shackles are lifted on lockdown and everything, I think people will come flooding back into the market, ready to buy. Funnily enough, they'll have more money because the money they've been earning, a lot of them have been keeping. So the ones that did have jobs, even the ones that are furloughed, nobody's traveling to work, so they're saving 20% of their income on travel. So that's all going into savings. They're not going on holiday. They're not going out eating. They're going out drinking. So people have got more money perhaps than they have. So I think what's potentially very exciting about the economy is that it will suddenly come flooding back very quickly. And I think that's going to provide a whole set of new challenges for businesses that are simply not ready for suddenly huge demand, which they could be.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. It'd be nice to touch on your point you made to me privately last week about this whole area around customer service about this part, because I think that's a very big one in its own right. I think I'm going to come to Roger on this in just a second. The other thing for me is, I think one of the things we forget too is that we tend to have a recession every 10 or 11 years, the last one being 2008, 2009. So if this hadn't happened over the last 12 months, probably something else would have hit us within a year or two anyway. So perhaps it may have brought things forward and perhaps a bit deeper, interesting enough. But Roger, obviously, in your case, your business was basically, to a large extent, has been fortunately also strong enough for what you've shared with me before to be able to come through on the other side. But your business has been obviously clearly very badly affected by it. But in terms of a general part around this whole point, about the market returning, and are we being delusional with this? At the moment, what do you see as being some of the sort of perhaps the biggest risks around all of this, but also perhaps some of the biggest opportunities in terms of where we are now moving forwards?
Well, I would agree with Barnaby. There's a huge amount of pent up, demand. People have been saving, and it's all relative. That's not across the board. There's a lot of people who are going through a lot of distress with this as well for different reasons. But this is a massive disruption. Everything has just been stopped, and cash flow is the key to keeping any business alive. What I'm seeing is people. Well, certainly in the hospitality area, it has been a nightmare. You've had lots of stop-start, which hasn't helped. People have invested to get their businesses up and running for Christmas, for example. We'd sold out a lot of our properties for Christmas and New Year and then had to pull it all. That's 3 times the work. Plus you're upsetting customers, etc. But they want to come over. I was speaking to a client in California who's booked for May, and he was asking me, can we come in May? I want to come. And I said, well, let's leave it until early March. We've got some flexibility. And from there, then we can figure out whether you can come. If not, he's just going to reschedule and come later. But that also causes issues. But I think the key is, and what's fascinating is, as I'm looking around, I'm seeing people's curtains just opening up later and later through the day. We've got people on furlough. Businesses, are going to have some sort of soft opening so people get back into the swing. Some people haven't worked for 12 months properly. So this disruption then goes into how do we function in our businesses? And it's going to take 2 or 3 months for people to get back up and running. And then what's going to happen is the demand will be there at day one. And how do we respond to that? So that's where businesses need to focus and how they can, get up and running quickly before the gates fully open.
Yeah, no, thank you, Roger. Some great points there. I know, Barnaby, you got some thoughts around this, haven't you? Because you got some big concerns over what's going to happen in terms of sort of customer service, the quality of customer service sort of coming through.
If you're in business and you've been and you've got a kind of business that people will buy on day one, the temptation will be to let everybody who wants to buy on day one. And I think Roger's absolutely hit it on the head, particularly in the hospitality sector. Our expectation when we leave our homes and start going out and eating in restaurants and drinking in bars and staying in places is that the service will be top notch, but those businesses won't be ready to provide top notch services. And what will happen is that could potentially lead to massive disenfranchisement from brands, from businesses. I think businesses can lose. I mean, if you've got your favorite restaurant and you're desperate for it to open up and you go there, you book a table, it's all opened up, and you turn it, and the service is rubbish and the food's not as good as it used to be, and they get the order wrong and everything, you're going to walk away with yet another chunk bitten out of the way you lead your life, because you just suddenly think, oh my goodness, it's not like it was, and you'll lose faith in things. And I think Roger's right. It needs I think as business people, you're going to have to just step back and say, okay, imagine we were opening this business for the very first time. If you're opening a restaurant for the first time, you're going to bring your friends and family in, you're going to make the mistakes in the first couple of weeks, and you're not really going to open your doors fully until a few weeks after the soft launch. I think all businesses have really got to start to think like that. And it's going to be really hard, because they're going to be most businesses that survive this long will be right on the edge, and they'll want to start getting the cash flow through the thing. But the danger of that is they'll get a boost very quickly after this sense of being able to get out again, but then it'll suddenly drop off, and then they'll really struggle to get people back, because people say, oh, I wouldn't go there anymore, they're not like they were, etc. There's Roger, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I used to work on the Guinness account, and they used to say that if you upset one person in the bar trade, you lost 9 people. I don't know if that's still a kind of folklore thing that goes around the hospitality industry, because somebody says, oh, where can we go locally? And I said, well, I wouldn't go down the King's Head anymore, because it's not as good as it used to be, and you lose 9 people. That's a huge risk that's going to have a much greater longer term impact on business rather than the short term cash flow hit. And I am really worried about that.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. What's your take on that, Roger? It's a matter of interest.
Well, I think service is key. I think customers will be reasonably, they'll let you make 1 or 2 mistakes, but they'll punish you after that. And although I think the demand for service, etc., and the expectation will be slightly lower, it'll not last for long. They want what they're spending money on. And what we'll also see is that prices are going to go up because the cost to deliver this is more expensive. I mean, one of our local restaurants was buying in knives and forks that were fumigated and packaged, and he was having to get stuff from Italy and everything else. For each consignment, he was spending something like £2,500 for knives and forks. And that added cost, etc. However, his was the busiest restaurant because people trusted and whatnot. I think another interesting thing that might come through is that once everything starts to get going, we're going to forget COVID very, very quickly, because normality is what everybody's looking for. And, we'll be running around like, headless chickens again. There'll be queues, demand, beaches will be full. And I'm just hoping that we've all learned something from this, and maybe people will start to slow down a wee bit and appreciate what's there and just take things more gently. But sadly, I think it's just going to go absolutely daft, as Barnaby says.
Yeah. As a matter of interest, I'm not quite sure what the thinking will be then, or what it is 100% now. But as things start to open up, are we presumably we're going to be in a world where there's going to be still a degree of social distancing as well? So a lot of the restaurants and pubs and other places presumably going to have half the capacity or that they had perhaps pre-COVID. Is that presumably that's going to add another pressure because those venues can't make the same amount of money that they were able to before, so they've got to cover their costs some other way. Is this a bit of an issue around this point as well, would you say?
I would say we're going to be eased in gently, but if the numbers keep coming down as they are and we don't have a second wave, later on, I was listening to somebody in the news yesterday, they were saying, COVID's going to be around for 10 years. We're going to have annual vaccinations, etc. COVID will become what flu has been. And how that manifests itself, we still don't know. So I think the government want to open us up slowly. We don't want to be opened up slowly, but that's what's going to happen. Social distancing, when we're part of it, we may have to wear masks, but I think we should all be very grateful just by getting out of the house. And that's what we'll hold on to start with.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's amazing with your household, Barnaby, as well, isn't it? Because you say you've got two people in the medical profession, one of which, of course, is your wife, and she's directly seen into the coalface as far as this is concerned. Isn't that right? And
very much so. Yeah. And I'm probably not really allowed to repeat some of her views on the way it's been handled in many respects. But I think Roger's absolutely right in terms of we will have to learn to live with COVID rather than die with it, and that's very much part. But I think businesses can be doing something about that now. They can be developing systems and processes which allow for them to maintain their capacity. I mean, it's interesting. I've noticed there Nikki's talked about is that, to ask the question, what if an extra 50, 500 or 5,000 customers turned up on your door, what would you do? Actually, every business has a maximum capacity. It has a limiting resource to it, as they call it. And I think people should be really focusing on what their limiting resource is, and then providing absolute value around the limiting resource. People will pay for value. What they won't pay for is cost and price and just products. So I think one of the opportunities that all businesses have right now is to sit down, take some quiet time and work out where the value is in their business rather than how much it costs to produce a product or provide a service, and then add a margin, and then that's the kind of the business model. That's a very, very thin business model. You can really go in depth now where you're providing value, and then people will pay for the value. And I think one of the things you might find is, again, Roger will have better figures than this maybe, but there's a kind of a sense that the hospitality industry works on an 80% covers model, and different days have different covers ratios and things like that. Obviously busy on Fridays and Saturday nights and less so on a Tuesday and a Wednesday or whatever. Well, I think people should start to think about how they get to 100% capacity with social distancing, with an amazing service, with amazing value, and then become something you queue for. And I saw this, funny enough, we I live quite near Bluewater, and we went to Bluewater when it was still operating, and we went on a Sunday, and we thought the shops opened at 10, and we went at 9, had a bit of a breakfast, but then we discovered the shops didn't open till 11. And so what happened is lots of people were arriving, and they were queuing outside all the big shops, the House of Frasers, the Debenhams, and the Apple Store, and all those sorts. So there were queues appearing outside all the stores, ready to go in on the Sunday. And then as we walked around, what I noticed about the queue at the Apple Store is that the staff were out with clipboards talking to everybody in the queue for 1 hour prior to opening. That was not happening on any other stores. And you just sit there and go, that is why Apple is one of the wealthiest companies in the world. They have thought through, how do we provide exceptional service? So even in the hour that people were queuing to wait to get into the Apple Store, they had their guys in their Apple t-shirts. There were about 10 of them with clipboards going around and speaking to each person in the queue. And now, how do those people in the queue feel compared to the people who are queuing outside House of Fraser, who were being shuffled and told to stand 2 meters apart and all that sort of thing? I think that's what we as businesses have to really think about now, that as we open, where's our limiting resource? How do we maximize that? And then how we provide amazing value. Everybody on this call can be sitting about how they do it in their business right now. So that actually, as it's opened up, they can go, I'm sorry, you can't come in, we're full, but we've got a slot for you next Tuesday, next Thursday, next Saturday. Would you like that? Would you like to go onto our list? So we give you preferential booking rates. When's your favorite time for coming? When do you want? When's your next birthday? When's your next? Whatever it is, let's use it as an opportunity to communicate with our prospects and our customer base.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rupert, I was just going to say, I think this time before we open gives us huge opportunity to understand what our customer requirements are. And remember, those have changed. Nobody's going into shops anymore. We've got click and collect. These are two new dynamics that really didn't properly exist before. So let's use this time to get creative and look where those opportunities are, because they're immense out there. And it is just that creative bubble that will find those solutions.
Yeah, 100%. It's really interesting because there's someone else on this call today, I believe, although I think today's been a little bit quieter than not. Actually, Alex, Riordan, I'm going to slightly quote you on this, if that's all right, because I don't think it's anything private, but I think a lot of our viewers here today, or listeners here today, will actually really appreciate it. But I remember Alex sharing with me, this was a couple of months ago, about the fact that he'd been speaking to, I think it was his daughter, who's been trying to reopen a nail bar beauty salon, as it were, before it got locked down again, to see recent events. And one of the discussion points that occurred was, actually, if you can't speak to the customers because they're not coming in the store, when people made bookings in the past, you've got all their phone numbers. Why don't you just phone every person up and just find out how they are? All right, they can't buy from you now, but actually just by showing that you care, to me, that was a really powerful message, because that shows you care. Also, then when things reopen again, you'll be front of mind. And it's also about how it makes people feel as well, isn't it? To me, that was a very powerful point that Alex made to me a while back. Are there some examples that you could think of like that? We obviously talked about how we can make the experience amazing for when people come back. Are there other techniques we could possibly use to engage with people now who perhaps are current customers, past customers, or even possibly prospects, as it were, to make them feel good so they do want to transact with you and work with you as things open up?
Just going on the nail bar idea, Rupert, what a fantastic opportunity to show people how to do it themselves at home. They're never going to be able to do it as well. There's opportunities there to sell product to them. And I love the idea of just making a telephone call and saying, how are you, et cetera, just share a wee bit, a virtual coffee, whatever that might be. But, you could do a Zoom call with 5 clients and show them how to paint their nails online. Boom, that just brings the brand right back to the customer.
Yeah, that's a nice one, actually. I love that. Thank you, Roger. Any thoughts yourself, Barnaby?
Yeah, so I vigorously disagree with the first part Roger said, and then vigorously agree with the second part he said. So I think it's too late to ring people up and ask them how they are a year into a COVID pandemic. I think that's an insult. I think it's marketing. I think it's crass. And I hate it when people do that. But I'm a grumpy old stick, so that's okay. So you can discount that on the thing. But the second part, which is actually, if you start if you take on board the idea that now is the time to add value to the relationships that you have, whether they're with people who are prospects or they're people who bought from you before, then providing advice, insight, helping them make sense of what's going on around them right now from your perspective, from the lens that you have on the world because of the business that you're in, that will be really valued by people. So I think the way you demonstrate care, which I think is Roger's point, to be fair, is to say, look, I'm an expert in this particular field, and you were a previous customer of ours, or you were interested in us. Let me tell you what we've learned about how we have navigated this particular period, and or how to prepare for the future, and or et cetera, et cetera. And so what you need to do is demonstrate care. And in the way to demonstrate care is through a way of added value to the relationship, not how are you, how's it going, because that just it's too late for that. And I think most people are not in as good a place as they would have been a year ago. So the answer to that question inevitably is going to be, well, I'm not as good as I was the last time you spoke to me, which was a year ago. Thanks for asking. Yeah. It's because people are bored, people are stuck at home, people are I think Thomas has just come on there and said, absolutely, Thomas. Early on, it was, of course, because we were in a period of uncertainty. We didn't know what was going on, and of course we wanted to show empathy to people around us. But everybody's known somebody who has suffered at the hands of COVID. So asking how you are is not ideal. You can ask people you have an ongoing relationship with how they are, that you speak to regularly. Of course you do. That's what we do. That's human. But ringing people up cold now. But I think if you add value, if you provide insight, so either painting the nails, showing people how to paint their nails in lockdown, to send out a list of great nail varnishes to buy on Amazon because they're cheap or they're available or something like that. Because people don't go to nail bars to have their nails painted. Let's be quite clear about that. They go to be pampered. They go to be the number one, the soul, to get love and attention, to get care, to get kind hands laying on them. That's what they go for, to chat to somebody. That's why they go, not to have their nails painted, because you can paint your own nails. Yeah. It's all part of that psychology of relationship. That's where nail bars score, and hairdressers score, and massage parlors score, and probably not massage parlor. Is it massage parlors? That's probably the wrong phrase, isn't it? It's massage places, whatever they are. I don't know. Where physios go, Shows how much I know about those sorts of things. But So.
No, thank you, Barnaby. I just want to pick up on something Damien's made a point of here. Actually, he said one point something discussed the staff who are going to seek more meaningful work in future if they have a choice. And actually, I think Damien's hit on something really. A really strong point here. I know our son, who's 24, and also someone else who actually Barnaby and I are meeting virtually on Tuesday, who is very much in the millennial category. A lot of people are not going to want to go back to 5-day-a-week in an office. They actually quite like the fact they perhaps can work 2 or 3 days a week from home. And they actually then have got the freedom to work, like going back to the office. So there's a bit of a social part as well. They perhaps like going out doing their cycling or whatever, their mountain bike or what they're doing at times that suit them a little bit. Do you think the whole workplace is going to change? People's expectations of work going to change, and possibly the use of office space as well? Any thoughts around all of that?
I would say yes to all of that. It is going to change, and it's got to be a mix and a match, and it's going to be linked to lifestyle. I think businesses have realized they can still get high levels of productivity with people working from home, which was the fear beforehand. But the workplace has to become more flexible, linked with people's requirements. The social aspect, I think, will draw people naturally back to offices, but they don't need to be there 9 to 5 days a week.
Interesting. Any thoughts, Barnaby?
Yeah, so I'm a Ned on a business that's run by two young boys, and we're putting a business together which is specially designed to help team building, productive team building once people come back from this in a blended workplace. And we've done a lot of research in this area. Some really interesting things coming up. First of all, the workforce currently is the first time in history we have 5 generations working together in the same workforce. Not so many old ones, but And what's absolutely clear is young single people are desperate to go back to the office if they are office bound, because that's how they live their lives. They live their lives working with colleagues and things like that. There are then the next group with young children, and it's why the focus on schools is so important, but they are also desperate to go back to the office because it is a hard graft, particularly for young mothers, to look after their children, look after their husbands, look after the home, look after everything, and pursue some kind of career. So they are pretty desperate to get back to the office as well to do that. I think there is then the next generation, the Generation X's and the baby boomers. They kind of like this idea that they can mix and match and have a bit of time at home and work in the office. And because they've got the expertise to do that and communicate and do well, and they're very functional as operatives. They like the idea of a blended office space. Now, what's interesting is businesses are being run by those latter two groups. And so what they've done is they've used this as an opportunity. And I have an example of an organization that has a large office in Covent Garden. And in February, they were about to sign a lease on an even bigger office in Aldwych. It got dilly-dallied and delayed for various legal reasons. And then, of course, lockdown came, the first lockdown. So they withdrew from that agreement. So that's a building that's sitting empty. They then have worked out that they can now cut the size of their Covent Garden offices by, I can't remember if it's either 40% and 60% of the workforce is coming in, or the other way around, by 60% and 40% of the workforce. But you see, they're all the older generation. They think that a working operation can work with older people working from home and thing, but the younger generation, that's not what they're about. They want to go in and they want to meet and they want to go down the pub and they want to have lunch together and they want to go to the gym together and they want to do all that sort of thing. And I kind of relate to that, because when I was young and in advertising, working in the centre of Soho, half the fun was being part of a group of people that just went out and had good fun and went and played, rounders and baseball up in Regent's Park and stuff. That was all part of work, and if you're young and single and in a one bedroom flat somewhere and you're forced to work from home, I don't think people are going to like that. So I think there's some real challenges for organizations to really sit down and look at the intergenerational relationship between the workplace, the staff, the operations, everything. And it's a big thing. And I think, in answer to Damon's point, I think young people who are being forced to work at home will look for other jobs so they can go and work in offices.
Right. Really interesting.
Because they just want to socialize with other people like them,
Yeah, very interesting dynamic. Yeah, so isn't it? Now, sort of slightly changing theme on that. I think that this is all really great. Roger, I know obviously with yourself, I think we were speaking of last week, and we were talking about how people perhaps are tending to book things now and their behaviour. If we took it in your particular context, first of all, to do with the fact that you've also got a very niche product around castles, in effect, and obviously, castle owners have been very badly hit. What's going on? And I think last time around you were saying some will never reopen, but you made some really other interesting points in terms of people way they'll book holidays moving forwards, if I remember correctly. Can you just share your thoughts on that as well?
Well, I think because hospitality has to be more flexible with their deposits and cancellation sort of setups, they've had to make it as flexible as possible because things are changing so much with COVID. So in the short term, everything's sort of down to 48-hour cancellations. But that's not just happened within the hotel area, which has been driven by quite a lot of the portals and whatnot. It's happening across self-catering, not so much on the exclusive use side, but on self-catering as well. So what we're seeing is, obviously there's a lot of press about everybody booking holidays. Now, as I mentioned at the start, people don't know whether they can go on holiday or not go on holiday, but I'm sure they will be able to go on holiday, and we'll get some more clarity later this month on that. But what they're tending to do is hedge their bets. So what would happen with people who use the portals? They might book 3 or 4 different hotels for the same night, and then 48 hours beforehand, they would cancel 3 of them and go to the one that they want. With self-catering now, they're maybe getting one in Scotland, one in Wales, and one in England, and then going to check the weather forecast the week before and choose which one they're going to go to. Now, with a self-catering property, it's not like a hotel where you can turn the room over quite quickly if you're in a city. Not so easy to do, when you're in the sticks. But with self-catering, it's a much more considered buy. It's a larger group of people, etc. So to actually fill that again, it's more difficult in a short sort of 2-week slot or even a 2-day slot. So what I anticipate is going to happen is we're going to see huge levels of cancellations, last minute deals coming through, and a lot of hospitality owners being left short with empty properties because somebody's decided they wanted to have 3 or 4 properties as a choice, and they're not really interested in the owner of these properties trying to sell them or whatever. So I think the summer could be quite interesting in the UK in the staycation market.
Yeah, wow. It's interesting when you look at this, and of course the disruption for the operators in this particular space, whether you're an operator with just 2 or 3 rooms, as it were, that in itself is going to present a lot of challenges, isn't it? So, because if people believe that's going to happen, does that mean that operators in a sense are going to perhaps deliberately overbook a little bit, knowing the fact there will be a level of cancellations?
I'm not sure in that area of the hospitality industry they're sophisticated enough. That happens a lot in hotels because of the high cancellation rates, but it's quite a skill to be able to balance that. And I'm not sure that the owners of these properties realize this is going on. They think it's a confirmed booking. The other thing is you've got a lot of international travelers who've got stuff booked that's been moved forward from last year, and they still think they're coming. Although realistically, they're not going to make it to the UK until next year, looking at what's happening across the world. So again, that's going to create more availability. So it is about really understanding the business, who's in there, and are they actually going to, turn up when they say they're going to turn up.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. So tying in really with some next questions. Now, part of this, I think we sort of answered, because it was really, we were going to talk about the state of your business readiness and also how to avoid being left behind. What sort of top tips do you have around this, Barnaby, in terms of things we might not have covered already relating to those 2 points?
Well, I think all the evidence that I've seen over the last 35 years is there is a fine balancing act between having enough resources available to you to service any demand, and then the demand itself. So the first thing I think you can do as a business is really understand what's the absolute maximum resource that you have available, and then limit access to that resource to match the resource. See, the nature of the way the media works, the advertising world works, the marketing industry works, the sales industry works, is to try and get as much as you can in at all times. And whereas I think when there's a lot of pent-up demand as well, we think there will be, what you need to do is to control the demand and make sure the demand sits as close to your resource. So the first thing you've really got to do is you've got to really understand what resources you've got available, and then match the demand that you're going to get to that. So make it difficult to buy from you if you think there's going to be a lot of people to want to buy from you. And there's lots of ways of doing that. You can put your prices up. You can make it simply just difficult to buy, not even hard, make yourself hard to find. Conversely, as demand drops off, what you should then do is make it very easy to buy. And one of the things that you could do is create a very sophisticated model around a property, for example, where if people cancel within a particular period of time, they pay a certain amount of the fee that they would have normally paid as a cancellation charge. That you put that up front, right? So if you cancel within 2 weeks, you pay 50% of the deal. But then what you have is you have a list of people who would come in the next 2 weeks for 50% off, right? And they might be, and then you get to 2 days before, and what you then do is you have a list of people who live within 10 miles but have been stuck at home for 10 months and would love a few days out in a different environment where they don't have to worry about fixing the cupboards and painting the walls and all that sort of thing. They can just come and enjoy themselves and be free. And they get it at 90% off because the next people who book it paid 40%, So there are ways of building systems and processes. And I think what you really need to do is to build a system and process around your business where you're managing the resource. Now, supermarkets have a noise for this. They have a sound for this, right? There's a particular sound for this, and it's called boop, boop, boop. And every time you scan a piece of an item across your thing, it goes through a whole system which tells the retailer how many of those are being sold, how many are in the warehouse, how many need to get ordered, how many need to be delivered, what the rate of sale is, so they can match that thing. So what you've got to do is you've got to add a boop to your business, so that actually you know exactly how much resource you've got, how you're going to manifest it, how you're going to do that. Anyway.
That's lovely. Thank you, Barnaby. And Roger, I'll come to you in just a second on that one. Muriel's reminded me, actually, Muriel, have you worked out who was the first person to actually, the people who first of all volunteered, the fact they'd shared the feed today?
Yeah, there was 3 people.
Okay, now obviously, who was the first person who came back?
Very first, easy peasy, was Jackie.
Right, there we go, Jackie. You got £20 Amazon voucher. Well done. So make sure you email Muriel with your Amazon email address. Make sure it's the right one, because otherwise it could go into someone else's account. Okay, and I appreciate your Amazon email address may be different to your own one. Okay, and we're going to need to, in a moment, we're going to draw the second one. I think I've got someone in mind for the second one, actually, probably for the most original question, although it's very difficult. Some really good ones have come out today. Actually, let me come back to Roger for a moment, then I'm going to frame the next question, and then what we'll do is we'll look at the drawing, and that way it'll give Roger and Barnaby a chance to think about their response. But Roger, I think I didn't give you a chance really to come in after what Barnaby said. So have you got any initial thoughts on?
I think less is more in instances like this, and it is about taking control. Obviously, different businesses are structured in different ways, but I think there's a great opportunity for automation. A lot of business owners during this period will have stepped back and looked at their operation. There are lots of ways to make it very easy for customers to buy, change and improve the process so that it doesn't take up huge amounts of resource. And that in itself is a massive step forward. But it is about managing that customer experience. But I would say to all businesses, look at the customer journey, see where you can take stuff out to improve that. And from there, the customers will benefit from that going forward.
Thank you very much, Roger. There's some really good points. Now I'm going to frame the next question, and then we're going to draw a prize. So both Barnaby have a chance to think about it, because we've obviously covered a lot of ground already. But the next question really relates to why we must act now to focus on your prospects and customers. So really, any thoughts or ideas that you have on that? This is, I think, probably the final question for today as well. And whilst Roger and Barnaby are thinking about that one for a second, I think the person that probably came up with one of the most original questions today, and it's very difficult, so we've got some really good points being made, probably has to go to Damien, actually, because although it wasn't really on the topic today, it's actually really intrinsic around the business. So that Damien's point out one topic not discussed yet is the staff are going to seek a more meaningful work in future if they have a choice. And actually, I think that's a really, really interesting point. Of course, that ties really well with the whole customer service piece, because you end up losing a lot of your good people, then guess what? You're going to really struggle on the customer service and also meeting demand. So I think, Damien, I think you're a very worthy £20 winner as well. So well done on that, Damien. Now we're going to have to think of, Muriel, you're going to have to think of a question now. You need to be ready in a minute for the final prize, but we're going to announce that at the very end. Okay, so you've got to think of something that Roger or Barnaby have said today, which if the first person comes with the right answer wins the final prize. So that sound fair? Okay, and I'll tell everyone as well why we decided to do this in the end as well. So Barnaby, on that point, why we must focus now on prospects and customers, any sort of thoughts on that at all?
Well, I mean, let's be honest about it. If you're in business, you should always be doing that. I think so. So I don't think there's any new news on that. But I think one of the key things that I would commend everybody to start doing is to start listening to their prospects and their customers much harder than before. I think the age-old brand owner has all the power is long gone, and now because we don't know, and I think you set up this session really well, Rupert, because we're talking about the businesses that are preparing to come out of this. There are a lot of businesses that don't make that, aren't going to make it. There are a lot of people who will know someone or may have lost someone through COVID. A lot of people will have gone through a lot of emotional distress, and face some real challenges that none of us have really faced, and we've never faced that collectively. And it feels like a post-war situation. Not that I've been in a post-war situation, but it feels like, I can imagine that's what it feels like. So I think we need to be much more empathetic. We need to listen more. We need to really seek to understand what people are trying to achieve, what their outcome is, and focus much more on that than most businesses do, which is always about, we're good at this. You should be lucky that you get to buy from us, which is the attitude of many businesses. That has to go in the immediate future, and we need to spend much more time really focusing on hearing and listening to what people are, why they're there, what problem we're solving for them, and then do our utmost to do that. I think if you do that, you'll create a loyal clientele, prospects. They'll talk about you. You'll create advocates, and I think it's a real opportunity to do that. But we have to do that much more than we ever did, because we have no idea what the background story is to each individual walking into our businesses.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you very much. And Roger, your thoughts?
Well, I'd agree with Barnaby with that. That's got to be top of the list. My one would be along the lines of building relationships, and that shouldn't have stopped. That should be developed, but that then leads to collaboration. And I think the customers now are looking for more of a story. They're looking to connect locally. They're looking to connect with what's behind the person who owns this particular product or business. So that story and how you share that story is important. It's almost they want to connect with you and feel part of and engage with you before they buy the product. And that's a key element. But by collaborating with others, you're able to develop that product, that service or whatever much more, and more people will benefit. So it'll be about sharing profit. It'll be about working together. It's not about all one brand taking everything now. It's spread it around.
Yeah.
If I can add to that, I think it's a really good point. But there was already evidence pre-pandemic that the concept of the social enterprise was going to be a dominant way of doing business in the next 20 to 30 years. And I think people are even less trusting of the institutions than they ever have been. They've been fuddled by it, confused by it. I have to say, I think we've all realised that the institutions aren't any better at making decisions than we are. They've chosen to take that position. And if you look at what's happened in America with the presidential election, I think a lot of people have had time to think about and say, well, I don't think we should be crashing and burning this planet quite as hard as we've been doing before. So I think Roger's absolutely right. What you need to demonstrate is an empathy, not only for each other, but also for the environment, for the individual, for the world at large, because this COVID has been a global challenge for everybody. And therefore it doesn't matter where you come from, what color, creed, what orientation you are, anything. I think now there's an opportunity to bring people together under in a way that's really beneficial, both from a brand point of view, a business point of view, and from an individual point of view. That's got to be something we should develop.
No, thank you very much. I think
Beautifully said.
Yeah, but really well said. What we're going to do is do a little bit of a 3 or 4 minute summary of what's sort of coming up over the next few weeks. And then what we'll do, it'll come back to Barnaby and Roger, if that's okay, with some final points or some top tips, if that's okay. I love the point, particularly around this whole thing about the brand, because I think there was a lot of larger companies where the population overall before COVID had completely lost confidence in some of the big brands and trust in them. And I think in many cases there are instances now where some brands have done an appalling job over the COVID scenario in terms of the way they've looked after their customers, and equally others have really excelled. And this whole thing around the social enterprise space, to me, is a really big thing as well. And I think that's, in a sense, we're coming into a world which is really for the entrepreneurs, the younger business owners who it could be older ones as well, but got the right values, beliefs, desire to help customers and put them first, these type of things. And I think it's an opportunity where customer service and demonstrating you care actually means an awful lot. But what we'll do is do about a 4 or 5 minute wrap up. Muriel's going to get ready a little bit with the third and final winner, and then we'll have kind of a closing wrap up with Barnaby and Roger in just a moment or two. So I'm just going to share my screen for a second, so just bear me a second. Right, now those of you who are familiar with this, you may have heard this before, but for those of you who haven't, we do love to focus on our members and how you can build on, accelerate the relationship of trust. Also think about how you can collaborate and help others. That's always a good thing to do. A quick reminder of the Thursday sessions. Okay, so the usual thing next week, we got our guest speaker interview with live Q&A, and we're changing the format moving forward a little bit for the session prior to this. In fact, I'm very grateful for those of you who joined in today in the previous session, because we asked you as potential members or members what you would really like from Business Growth Bureau, and very nice, you were very accommodating, and you told us. And the great thing is, obviously, it's going to be very much taken into account. So the next session will be on the second of Thursday of the month, which is the 11th of March. Okay, and that session is completely free. We are changing the model for the first session moving forwards. So those of you who want to get a real taste of that, make sure you join us next month. You can book that now, and we'll reveal more details of that over the coming week or 10 days once Muriel and Alex Ryan and myself have had a chance to review what everyone has sort of said as well. So thank you for your feedback on that. And Adrian Savage, great guy. In fact, through no fault of Adrian, by the way, we're going to be a really interesting case study for him, I think. This is why we're offering these vouchers today, is I made a bit of a boo-boo. And because we've got a very large business email list, I think it's about 58,000 people in our business email list. We've been trying to split our database into 2 or 3 segments so we can spread across different service providers. And it's very, very complicated for all sorts of reasons. And unfortunately, I chose one of the wrong buttons. It's the politest way of saying it yesterday. And it's something I should have known probably, but I didn't. But the bottom line is, a lot of you who were very kind yesterday, actually, because I sent out an email immediately afterwards saying, look, really sorry, I've realized I made a mistake. Could you just do us a big favor? If your email has gone into spam, just very kindly mark it's not spam, and then put it back in your inbox, okay? Because that's a way of training people like Google and Microsoft and others that it actually is genuine mail. Now, interesting enough, we'll talk about a lot of this more next week, but believe me, Google and Microsoft and these other big providers, they know literally everything that's going on with what you're doing, just like the social networks do as well. And this actually has some quite serious connotations. So in many ways, it's for the good, but it also, in effect, a lot of people have this perception that when you send an email, it's completely confidential. In reality, it's not. It may be encrypted when it leaves your account, and then it's decrypted to be sort of processed, and it's encrypted again. The problem is that the bots that Microsoft and Google and others have actually, in many ways, they're using it as a force of good, but actually you can have very legitimate email not getting to its destination because these big corporates feel that perhaps it might be spam, when it may be just that you've got a doctor emailing something about COVID, for example, and COVID is regarded as almost a spam type word, and things may not end up in the inbox. So Adrian Savage is a real expert in this. He's partnered up with another person in the States, and also someone in Australia as well. And he's going to be sharing some great insights in terms of how you can make sure that your emails do hit the inbox, and also you avoid going to like the promotions tab in Google, or equally avoiding the spam folder. So he's going to have sharing lots of insights next week. So I'm sure a lot of you, I think Nikki was telling us the previous session, she knows Adrian really well. So, we've obviously got our next mini conference that's called Spring into 2021 mini conference. Obviously, it's going to be the last one before the clocks change at the end of March. We'll probably run that in a slightly different format to the previous ones. But obviously, you're very welcome to book for that. And some of the details around that are really about how you can bring your sales forward, amplify your brand for growth, and leverage technology. And we'll be covering also things about your marketing mix and your balanced product portfolio. But in particular, we're talking about how to use LinkedIn and how to use BizGrowth Time Machine. So without going into more detail about that now, if you want to look at any of these things, if you go to our homepage of our website, you can access all these things here, including booking for next week's live streams and sessions. All the links are available from the homepage. Go through and book. You can book multiple sessions as well. Here you can choose the recurring option instead of continue. That's for the Thursday sessions, and that will allow you to book future events in advance. Okay, so then if you want to actually just see the state of your business readiness from a sales and marketing perspective, you're very welcome to complete this diagnostic free of charge by going to businessgrowthbureau.tv/diagnostic. Okay, it takes 4.5 to 6.5 minutes to complete. We know that because we get the timings as well. And you get a report on the back of it, and you're very welcome to book a call. So we're going to draw the prize in just a second, and the final prize. And we're also going to ask Barnaby and Roger for their sort of final insights. But just those of you who want to reach out to, obviously, I'm very grateful today for Roger and Barnaby very kindly sharing their time. You know, they give their time freely. They just want to give back. And so thank you very much for that. Obviously, we've got the website addresses there as well, and also you've got the phone number for Roger and Barnaby there as well, and equally the email addresses. So do reach out. They've got lots of value. You know, they're great people to work with. So let's come back to this so we can see everyone again. So there we go. Thank you very much, Barnaby. Roger, any sort of closing thoughts, Roger, that you want to share?
I would just say there is loads of opportunity out there, and it's a mindset thing. But I'm just going to say jigsaws. I put a post up about a jigsaw that I'm doing on LinkedIn. I had a photographer come and ask me a question. Do I know somebody who could create some of his images into jigsaws? And he was trying to get something for 1,000 pieces and couldn't find it. I put it out to my network. I've got 3 leads for him. I've shared that with them. So my thing is about helping others, because I know that photographer at some stage is going to be able to help me. Now, that might be taking pictures of a property. It might be introducing a client or whatever. And people do business with people. So the more people you help, the more people know you, the greater opportunity you have of success.
Yeah, love it. Perfect. Thank you, Roger, very much for that. And Barnaby, your sort of closing thoughts?
Yeah, so I think the big thing, I think, is to focus on your brand. And I don't mean your branding. Your branding is how you look and feel and your logo and all that. So it's got nothing to do with brand. The brand is all about commercializing relationships. It's something that Roger touched on before, which I totally agree with. So I think you need to build the machine that adds value to your ability to commercialize relationships. Really limit that and spend as much time as you possibly can in this downtime. It's an absolute wonderful time to really sit down, look at your systems and your processes, how you're going to commercialize relationships, add as much value as you can, make sure it's around your limiting resource, and just be ready for when you open the doors and they all come flooding in, and make sure everybody's up to standard, and understand the way you do things. And good luck, everybody, because it's going to be a heck of a ride when it does open up.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. And I think just so one sort of thought I would just probably add to this as well is that it's really important, interesting enough, solopreneurs or business, of smaller to medium-sized businesses, is a real opportunity for companies to come back. And in effect, really, I think it'd be fair to say that we're the engine of the economy. So obviously the corporates will tend to employ perhaps half the workforce, but it's the small to medium-sized businesses out there that actually will really help us to accelerate out of this recession, which obviously has been enforced by the rules we're having to work within, sort of moving forwards. So it really is an opportunity to make sure that you actually are riding on the wave rather than actually sitting back for 3 or 4 months and then actually everyone else has just moved ahead of you. So I'm very appreciative for everyone's thoughts. Ameerah, have you got any sort of closing thoughts on this at all?
Yeah, are we going to do the Amazon voucher?
I haven't forgotten that.
You haven't?
Okay. Yeah. So
Go
what
on. Where's my notes? Sorry, Roger said about staffing. I know that when I go on, or used to go on 2 weeks holiday, coming back to work was really tough. That first week was hell to get through. So people have been off a year and a half. So I don't think employers can expect that people are just going to turn up full time, 5 days a week, because I think the majority won't. They'll be looking at alternatives. So I think employers should be wary that they need to accommodate for the staff, otherwise they'll be losing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Muriel. We'll draw the voucher in just a second. Just want to pick up on what Thomas has said here. Always believe in givers gain, which obviously is a BNI phrase, but I'm afraid we've stolen it as well. But give credit to BNI. I think the two words together actually do mean a lot. Mike, mine says stop selling and start serving. Love it, Mike. So thank you very much for that. So on those really nice positive notes, it's a nice way to turn up a Muriel, the other £30 Amazon voucher winner.
Okay, can I just check that people that have already won one can't win again? Is that correct?
Think that's fair. Yeah, I think so.
I think that's fair. Okay. So my question is that Barnaby mentioned that somebody uses the beat system to manage stock levels, sales, etc., and we should be thinking about this within our businesses. What type of shop was that?
Well, who's going to come up with the answer first on that one? And we've got to have the time lag between Facebook and YouTube on here, by the way. So it's an interesting one. Come on, guys. Who's going to be the first? If not, we're keeping it. Right. Come on. Someone must have the right answer. I know there's about a 20 to 40 second delay.
Nikki's in.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, it's Nikki Wilde.
Yeah, okay. So
Nikki has got the right answer.
Well, Nikki, you keep on winning. What we're going to have to sort of sabotage you in some shape or form. You keep on winning these prizes. Anyway.
I heard her business was just getting prizes from you, Rupert. I thought that's...
Yeah, I think that's it. She's one smart cookie, Nikki. So anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Barnaby and Roger, stay with us for a minute or two. But everyone else, thank you very much for taking part this week. It will be a great session next week. And big thank you to Roger and Barnaby. And, of course, my lovely number 2, Muriel, in terms of making sure today's happened with great success. All right. Cheers, everyone. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.